To understand the choices that people make, we need two crucial elements of those choices. First, we need a notion of what constrains those choices. What are the limitations people face when making those choices? You may want to have a new Lamborghini or a new Louis Vuitton, but can you afford it? Well, most people can't. This is just one example of how a typical constraint we face limits the choices that we can make. Another example is our ability constraint. Let's look at Alexei. Alexei is a college student in economics. He can study 0 hours per day, or he can study 24 hours per day, or anything in between. But how many hours will he actually study? One of the key determinants of his choice is the grade point average he can achieve with the hours of work he puts into studying. It looks like the well-known production function from last week, doesn't it? And it actually is exactly that. Alexei's GPA, his grade point average, is a function of how much he studies. For example, if he studies 4 hours, he'll be able to achieve a grade of 50. Or raising his labor hours to 10 will add a bit of GPA, and he will be able to enjoy a grade of 81. If he works for 15 hours a day, he'll be able to achieve 90 points. But at the same time, he will not have time for much else than studying, unfortunately. Notice how, after a certain amount of hours Alexei has put into producing his economics grade, the grade does not increase. If you think about it, it's very logical, and we'll discuss the reason for this shape of the production function during the live lecture this week. Now, let's look at the marginal, or the incremental changes in how much Alexei can achieve in an hour of work or study. For example, if he has studied for 4 hours so far and studies for just 1 more hour, he can add 7 points to his final grade. But if he has studied for 10 hours already, studying for 1 more hour will not add that much to his final grade. At 10 hours of study, the marginal increase in his grade is going to be only about 3 points. We call this incremental increase in output from 1 more hour of work the marginal product of labor. So at 4 hours of study, the marginal product of labor is 7 points. And at 10 hours of study, the marginal product of labor is only 3. So overall, we notice that the marginal product of labor tends to decline as people work or study longer hours. The average product of labor also declines. At 4 hours, the average product of labor is 12.5 points per hour. At 10 hours, the average product of labor has gone down to 8.1 points per hour. Notice that we can see the average product of labor and marginal product of labor as slopes and angles. The marginal product of labor is the slope of the production function itself. The average product of labor is the tangent of the angle locked between the dashed line and the horizontal axis. Note that as we increase our hours of work, the angle declines. This means the average product of labor also declines. This is the basis of our ability constraint. It is simply a production function for grades. Like many production functions, it has two interesting properties: declining marginal product of labor and declining average product of labor. Let's keep those properties in mind. In the next video, we'll discuss the second element of how people make choices, their preferences.